Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Tech Showdown. My name is Kevin, this is my co-host Teddy, and today we're doing an AMD mid-range build. So this one is not so much trying to be the best value for money as it is just a really solid mid-range build aimed at 1080p gaming on ultra presets in all the newest games. So let's jump into it then and talk about the specs of the build itself, and we'll start with the case. So I decided to go for the Fractal Design Meshify C in white. Now I love this case. It's great to work with, it looks really good, and I just think it's a solid case. Doesn't take up too much space. It is on a bit on the smaller side, so keep that in mind. But it's nice if you have a bit of a shorter desk or not that much room to work with. It's a good case to go for. Now CPU wise, of course we're going mid-range, so it has to be the Ryzen 5 2600X. Now a lot of you guys have often asked me why I prefer the 2600X over the 2600. This is for two reasons. One, it comes with a better cooler, and two, more people don't overclock than people that do overclock. You know what I mean? And I think a lot of you guys, especially the enthusiasts, just think everybody does. Not that many people do. Most people just put their CPU in and then they just leave it. So the 2600X actually has a decent performance bump over the 2600 because of the better clock speeds. And for that added cost, along with getting a better cooler, I just think the 2600X is the better one to go for the vast majority of people. Obviously, for enthusiasts or people who are going to overclock, you just go for the 2600. Now let's talk about the cooler then. So I decided to go for the Be Quiet Dark Rock 4. This is a great cooler. I actually use this on my personal rig as well. I really like it. It's very quiet. It comes in at a good price point and it does a pretty decent job at cooling, as we'll see a bit later. Now motherboard wise, this is important. So I decided to go for the Asrock B450 Gaming K4. Now I will be doing a full review of this motherboard very soon. This is just an awesome B450. I've had no issues with it and it goes just fine. It doesn't have any lighting on it as far as I'm aware, so if you're someone who's really after the RGB, that may be an issue for you, but I don't care about it, so it wasn't an issue for me. I think all of us have done that. Your first PC is like this big light machine, you know, looks like a disco, and then, or a nightclub, and then your second PC just has no lighting in it because you're like, yeah, maybe I shouldn't do that next time. So that's kind of at the stage I'm at now. So I decided to go for that motherboard, and it's been great so far. Now, the memory-wise, I went for G-Skill Sniper X 3400 megahertz. It's a 16 gigabyte kit. 16 gigabytes I feel is a good amount right now. You definitely wouldn't want to go less than 8. I feel like 8 is sort of the new minimum, and 16 is a good amount. Of course, with Ryzen, you want the fast memory, so I would say anything over 3000 is good, but more is better. 3400 megahertz, that's just fine. Now, as far as the GPU goes, we're running the Asrock Phantom Gaming X RX 590. So the 590 is an interesting GPU. We'll go over all the benchmarks soon, but it really can be a good deal depending on your country. So in some countries, it's not a very good deal at all, relative to things like the RX 580 or the GTX 1060. But in other countries, it can actually be a very good deal. So this is going to be very dependent on where you live. But so far, the RX 590 as a GPU itself is very good as far as the mid-range goes. Now, as far as the SSDs go, for the M.2 using the Corsair MP500, that's a 512 gigabyte one, and for our gaming SSD using the Team Group T-Force Delta RGB 240 gigabyte, which is a really good one for that. And powering it all is the Fractal Design Edison M 750 watt gold rated power supply. And you may be thinking, oh, Kevin, that's pretty overkill, 750 for this. It is. I always tend to go more overkill in the sense of if this is a build I'm recommending that you guys copy or do a similar one to, you want more. That's going to be better further down the road. You know, you'd rather have too much than too little as far as power goes. So let's go over the performance then. And we'll start with 3D Mark Firestrike. So this is the overall score, and you guys can see it's pretty decent there. You can compare this online, or if you have the benchmark yourself, you can do it and see how your PC compares to it. Those are pretty good as far as mid-range scores go. Let's go over to a game, Shadow of War. So this is quite a demanding game. This was run on the very high preset preset. Seeing it 1080p there, 70 average with 56 on the 1%. That's just fine. That's going to be good for you. 1440p, yeah, it's dipping a bit low there. So yeah, probably not going to be good for 1440p without dropping those settings down a bit. Then we go over to Rainbow Six Siege. This was on Ultra. See at 1080p there, tons of frames. You could run a high refresh rate 1080p monitor just fine with this. And even at 1440p, there's plenty there. That's just fine. Then we go over to Total War Warhammer 2. So this was run DirectX 11 on high settings. See, once again, 1080p, that's just fine. Maybe dips a little tiny bit under 60 sometimes, but that won't really be noticeable. So that's just fine at 1080p on high. Once again, we go to 1440p, we run into a little bit of trouble there. It's dipping a bit low, you'd have to drop the preset then down to medium or something to get it up over 60. Now, Shadow of the Tomb Raider, this is a very hard game to run, and this was on the very high preset. We can see there 63 on the average, but the 1% are a bit low at 1080p. Would have liked that to be a bit higher. 1440p, once again, it's just a bit difficult, so I'd probably drop that preset down to high, maybe knock off the filters a bit, and then you'll get a consistent 60 FPS. And then Far Cry 5 at 1080p, this is on high, it's just fine, there's no worries at all, that'll be good. And at 1440p, yeah, we run into a bit of issues again, so once again, you'd have to drop down the presets. Overall, the performance, I'm happy with. For a mid-range build like this, especially in demanding games like these ones, to get up to their second highest, or in some cases the highest preset at 1080p, that's what we're going for. And of course, if you have a 1440p monitor or a 1080p high refresh rate monitor, you'll just knock off the filters a little bit. Maybe you'll knock that preset down a little bit, and that'll help you get the frames up just a bit higher if that's what you're going for. Or in the 1440p sense, you're just going to be wanting to get it over 60. So yeah, I'm happy with the performance there. It's good combo, 2600X, doing well. Obviously, that's a 6-core CPU running at 4.25 gigahertz out of the box, so that's good. And the RX 590 is pretty powerful. That was set in its OC mode as well, so it was going pretty hard. Now let's talk about the temperatures then. So we'll start with the CPU, and for this I ran Handbrake, a render test for 5 minutes, and we see here the 2600X, that's just fine. You know, 70 degrees Celsius, that's fine. They're not a particularly hot running CPU, I don't think, and with a good cooler like this, it was making no noise, you know, that's just fine. And for the GPU, we ran the Unigine Valley benchmark on the Extreme HD preset. We could see that the Asrock RX 590 went up to 76 degrees Celsius. That's also just fine. Was kicking up a bit of noise there, but we'll go over that more when I do my showdown videos. But yeah, it was good. So both the temperatures on the CPU and GPU were fine. They're not going to be an issue, even though this is a bit of a smaller case and it just had the one intake fan at the front and one exhaust fan in the back, although the top is open and there's obviously the opening in the front as well. So there is going to be air getting drawn in. Which brings us now to the conclusion, and what do I make of this mid-range build? So as I said earlier, this wasn't meant to be like the best value for money. You can obviously go out and do a much better value for money mid-range build. This is just a solid, nice, good 1080p, 60 FPS, whatever the game, on Ultra or the second highest preset, like very high, all the time build. And I'm happy with it. I would highly recommend you do a similar version to this if you're looking to build a mid-range PC. You're not looking for just the absolute best value. You're just looking for something great. Then this would be good. The Asrock B450 motherboard, I really liked that. So definitely take a look at that. If you're looking to build one around a B450, maybe you're looking at getting a 2600X, 2600 or something like that. That will be a very good motherboard for you. As I said earlier, I will have a review up on that very soon. But yeah, overall, good build, I think. But as always, I want to know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Let me know. Again, don't go straight into the value for money, but let me know what comes to mind when you think of like a solid mid-range build. Doesn't need to be the best value, just what you think, like solid 1080p, high refresh rate, or even just 1080p 60 on Ultra all day. What sort of parts come to mind? I'd like to know what you guys think in the comment section down below. And I thank you guys for watching this video. Please subscribe to Tech Showdown if you haven't already, and like the video. As always, I'll see you guys next time.